Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. This week we're going to talk about the Sambucus family, or more commonly known, elderberry. As you likely know, if you have had any interaction with herbal medicine, elderberry is one of our most useful herbs. It has become particularly popular in recent years with the viruses and everything going around. Um, they're delicious. They're pretty plants. They grow wild all around where I live, but probably grow wild somewhere in your area. At least one variety you can probably find. And you can definitely grow them. And they actually also make an excellent wine or syrup. We'll get into elderberries. There are 19 varieties of elder or Sambucus that have documented use in herbal medicine. There are 2 shrub forms that are native to my region. Many have been introduced. And yeah, they're great plants. They have a long history. So, how's your week been? Mine's been pretty rough, actually. Had a ton of work to do and a little fun. I actually made what's the Baalic? I think that's the way you pronounce it. Baalic sling, an old-fashioned sling like David killed Goliath with. And I've been practicing with that. It's a lot of fun. You know, I'll probably do a video at some point on how to make one. You can take a couple lengths of paracord, maybe 6 feet long each, and you can make one in like 10 minutes. Go grab a couple rocks and start slinging them. And I mean, you can get crazy accurate with it. When you start out, I mean, if you can hit the broadside of a barn, you're doing really well. So it's just challenging. It's a lot of fun. Highly recommend that. So that was the high point of my week. I guess the low point would be when I finally got to check my mail for the first time in a couple of months. Yeah, things have been pretty up in the air with family issues and hurricane damage and everything. I found a bunch of letters from the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles. They decided that I don't have insurance on my truck. I do have insurance on my truck. I paid the bills. I have proof of insurance, the ID and everything. So apparently they sent me a letter saying I don't have insurance, which is false. Then they sent me very quickly a follow-up letter saying because I don't have insurance, they're revoking my registration. And then they sent me a letter saying they were fining me, and if I didn't pay it within so many days, they would refer it over to justice or whatever and have me prosecuted. So, first thing tomorrow morning, I have to pull my act together and try to find a rational human being in the Department of Motor Vehicles who will understand that it's their fault and not mine and not send the cops after me. So, what's new? That's North Carolina. It's completely unsurprising, actually. Yeah. So anyway, get a sip of water here. Got a little hoarse today. The allergies are bad this year. Well, it also has to do with so much travel, being in different parts of the state, not being able to adjust to a particular environment. You know, anybody who travels a lot, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like you always have a head cold. Now, it's just because you keep having to adjust to new environments. Well, anyway, Dioscorides wrote of two members of this family. Uh, Sambucus or Sambucus nigra, also confusingly called elder. Sometimes you will see elder, which, well, we call it elderberry. That's not the confusing part. Sometimes people will write it as alder, Alder, and which, of course, is a completely different tree. Um, so that can be a little difficult when you're going through old translations. But he said he called it acti, and he describes it, and it's always interesting that the branches are actually hollow. And speaking of primitive weapons, some people have traditionally made blowguns out of them. But the thing is, the stems and branches of elder are toxic. It can make you very sick. So when people do that, they have to put a spacer in there, something so their lips are not actually touching it, and make sure it's thoroughly dried and all that. But let's see, he describes that, and then he talks about the dwarf elder or ground elder. Now, it has some toxicity throughout the entire plant. And certain shrub form varieties are called ground elder or dwarf elder, and they are edible. Certain ones are not. And apparently, in Greece, the one he was familiar with was somewhat toxic. But he did use the leaves. Well, let's see. Um, of the first one, yeah, he didn't seem to use a lot. The second one, he used the leaves to purge phlegm and bile, and the stalks boiled as a vegetable. Interesting. Yeah, in its immature form, it can be eaten. You can boil it to remove toxicity. Yeah, you know, you're going to want to look into see which one's growing in your area. I'm not going to give a blanket endorsement to eating it. You're going to want to find which one's growing in your area. Make sure you're eating one that has good berries and isn't too toxic in the stems. But St. Hildegard von Bingen wrote of elder in around 1100 AD. She said, one who has jaundice should enter a sauna bath and place the leaves of the tree on hot rocks. He should pour water over them and then place a twig in pure wine so that it takes its flavor. The wine becomes flavored with the elder. While in the bath, he should drink this in moderation, and if he comes out of the bath, he should lie in bed so that he sweats, so covered up with blankets. He should do this often, and he will be better. So something about the elder in a sauna steam and taken infused in wine somehow helped purify the liver, detoxify the liver, which is very interesting. I wish I had more information on that use. At some point, I do a lot in the German tradition of herbal medicine. It's in many ways similar to the Swedish and Norse and all that, but they do tend to use saunas more in that tradition, also in the Russian tradition. So maybe I can look into it and find something there. Gerard wrote of common elder. This is the common elder of England. That's really the one we eat more of the berries from. He mentions that Galen found it to be moderately digestive, so somewhat good for the stomach. But Galen was most likely talking about the plants that Dioscorides was talking about, so we'll just skip ahead to the English uses. He says, the leaves and tender crops of the common elder taken in some broth or pottage openeth the belly, purging the thick phlegm and choleric humors. The middle bark of it is of the same nature, but stronger, and purges the said humors more violently. That doesn't sound pleasant. Well, let's see. If it gets rid of the thick phlegm, it's going to be a good expectorant. Open the belly, though, probably a pretty strong laxative. The seeds contained within the berries dried are good for such as have dropsy, it's edema, it's a diuretic, and such as are too fat and would fain be leaner, if they be taken in the morning in the quantity of a dram with wine for a certain space. We don't use drams anymore, and he doesn't say how long that certain space is. But see, the thing with Gerard, he was not really a botanist or an herbalist. He was a gardener. He was the Queen's gardener. So very often he quotes common usage or things he got from other writers as his own. And so he probably didn't know how long that common space was either. He says the leaves of elder boiled in water until they be very soft, and when they are almost boiled enough, a little oil sweet almonds added thereto, or a little linseed oil, and that would be just flax oil, not linseed oil from a hardware store, which is toxic. Then taken forth and laid upon a red cloth or a piece of scarlet, and applied to the hemorrhoids or piles as hot as can be suffered, and so let to remain upon the part affected until it be somewhat cold, having the like in readiness applied one after another upon the diseased part, by the space of an hour or more, and in the end some bound to the place, and the patient put in a warm bed, it hath not yet failed at the first dressing to cure the said disease. But if the patient be dressed twice, it needs do good if the first fail. Wow, that's hard to decipher. One, why does it have to be a red cloth? That's a little odd. And bound to the hemorrhoids, that's a little odd as well. But I guess it had an astringent shrinking property. We will assume. That's an odd one. He says the green leaves pounded with deer's suet or bull's tallow are good to be laid on hot swellings and tumors, and doth assuage the pains of the gout. So that would be the same use, and so it has an anti-inflammatory and astringent property. The inner and green bark doth more forcibly purge, so that's going to give you some serious diarrhea. Of like operation are also the fresh flowers mixed with some kind of meat or fried with eggs. So elderflowers fried with eggs would be used as a laxative. Interesting. It says the vinegar in which the dried flowers are steeped are wholesome for the stomach, being used with meat as it stirreth up the appetite, and cureth and attenuateth, and maketh thin the gross and raw humors. So again, must have some expectorant qualities. Boy, he goes on for a while. He did like a jelly made from the berries. Would take away inflammation of the mouth and the almonds or swollen glands of the throat. That's a pretty good use. I think we'll have more mention of that in a little bit. He talks about the seed being used as a more gentle laxative infused in wine. Yeah, we'll skip ahead. He also wrote of dwarf elder, and I'm not going to really get into that because that's not really the one you want to be using unless it's native to your area and it is specifically stated by your extension agency, botany department at a college to be an edible variety. There can be a lot of confusion when it comes to dwarf elder. It can actually refer to a couple different plants. Culpeper wrote about 100 years later in language a little bit better to understand. He said, the young leaves boiled in fat do mightily carry forth phlegm and choler, so good expectorant. The leaves or inward bark boiled in water and given in drink worketh much more violently, and the berries, either green or dry, expel the same humor and are often given with success to help the dropsy. The bark of the root boiled in wine or the juice thereof drank worketh the same effects, but more powerfully than either the leaves or the fruit. The juice of the root taken doth mightily procure vomitings. So it's not just a laxative, it would make you throw up too. It would purge the watery humors of dropsy. Decoction of the root taken cureth the biting of an adder. I don't want to test that. And the biting of mad dogs. I definitely don't want to test that. Now, although elder does have some antiviral properties, if you get bitten by a rabid dog, you need to go to the hospital as quickly as you possibly can. The berries boiled in... I skipped a line. It mollifieth the hardness of the mother, and openeth the veins, and bringeth down their courses. I guess it stimulates menses. We'll just go with that. The berries boiled in wine performeth the same effects. And the hair of the head washed therein is made black, so you could use it as a hair dye. The juice of the green leaves applied to hot inflammation of the eyes assuageth them much, so good for eye inflammations. The juice of the leaves snuffed up the nostrils, purgeth the tunicles of the brain. I don't know what a brain tunicle is. I'm going to say it helps with sinus congestion. The juice of the berries boiled with honey and dropped into the ears helped with the pains of them, so it would reduce inflammation. That's what it is. The decoction of the berries and wine being drank provoketh the urine. The distilled water of the flowers is much used to cleanse the skin from sunburning, freckles, morphew, and the like, and taketh away headache coming from a cold cause, the head being bathed therewith. I also said it was good for bloodshot eyes, so, if you wake up looking and feeling like Dean Martin on a Sunday morning, you need to get some elder. He said the dwarf elder, and again, this is going to be an English dwarf elder, was used for the same effects but was more powerful. Now, Miss Grieve also said that the dwarf elder of England was drastically more therapeutic in action than the common elder, and only the leaves, very occasionally the berries, are used in medicine. Now, again, we need to make sure we got the right dwarf elder if we're going to mess with it at all. The berries that you can actually eat and make wine from the regular elder plants are the ones, those are the plants we use mostly. Much safer, much safer. She even mentions there's a bristly sarsaparilla in America that's called wild elder or ground elder, two entirely different plants. She says right here, in the United States, the name of dwarf elder is given to a different plant. It was an Aurelia. Common names can be very, very confusing. She also mentions the prickly elder, which is an American species. That's Aurelia spinosa, also called prickly ash. Remember, I told you sometimes these are called alder or ash even. And the berries are poisonous, so we want to be very careful if we're not working with just regular elder. And there's box elder. I totally forgot about box elder. That's an English and American one. And she mentions that one of those, it's not a true elder, could be used like maple trees to make a syrup. So it gets very confusing when we're not using Latin names. Let's see, does she have any information? Let's see, the berries. Nope. But she does clear up some confusion. We'll move on to the Irish use of the common elder. The leaves, tender tops, and inner bark purge bilious conditions. A small amount of the seed pounded and taken in wine will disperse all accumulations of water and fluids. The green leaves are good against all sorts of inflammations, while the flowers expel wind from the stomach. The berries can be used in gargles for sore mouths and sore throats. Father Nape also used both the dwarf elder, the regular elder of Europe, and the dwarf elder. We'll skip the dwarf elder and go with the common. He says, in the good old times, the elder bush stood nearest to the house, but now it is in many ways displaced and rooted up. It ought to stand near every home as part of the household, as it were, or if cast aside, it should be brought back to its place of honor. For every part of the elder tree, leaves, blossoms, berries, bark, and roots are all efficacious remedies. In springtime, vigorous nature strives to throw off matters that have gathered in the body during winter. Who does not know that these states, the so-called spring diseases such as eruptions, diarrhea, colic, and such like, whoever wishes to purify the juices of the blood by a spring course of medicine and to get rid of injurious matter in the easiest and most natural way, let him take 6 or 8 leaves of the elder tree, cut them up small, and let the tea boil for about 10 minutes. Then take daily the whole course, 1 cup of this tea fasting, an hour before breakfast. This most simple blood purifying tea cleanses the machine of the human body in an excellent manner, and with poor people it takes the place of the pills and such like which nowadays are found in fine medicine chests, and which have very often strange effects. This course may also be undertaken at any other time of the year. Even the withered leaves make a good purifying tea, so it's going to clean you out. Who has not eaten cakes made of elderflowers? Yes, that's a very good edible use of the flowers. He says these Subian or so-called little cakes, many people bake them just at the time when the tree is shining in its white spring adornment, and they say these little flower cakes are protection against fever. I know of a place which is often visited with the ague or fevers, and there in the spring you will see these elderflower or fever cakes on every table. I have never examined this minutely and critically, but let those people remain in their faith, for such is good and wholesome. He says elderflowers also purify, and it would be good in every home dispensatory to have a box of dried elderflowers. Winter is long, and cases can occur in such a dissolving and sudorific little remedy may prove excellent service, and harm can never be done by it. He recommends it for dropsy or edema. He goes on. He really likes them. The berries in the autumn, he says, are often boiled and eaten as a porridge or marmalade. A marmalade of elderberry. It's like that jam we were talking about. It'd be very good. He said it was highly esteemed by our forefathers as a blood-purifying remedy. My departed mother undertook such an elderflower course every year for a fortnight to 3 weeks. This was the main reason why our ancestors 40 or 50 years ago had at least 2 elder trees planted before their houses. As the higher class nowadays travel and often to distant lands to make use of expensive grape cures, so our parents and grandparents used to go to the elder tree, which close at hand, and serve them so cheaply and much better than the expensive grapes. Some years ago I was in the Austrian Alps and saw there to my great joy how the elder tree was still honored. Of that, said a peasant to me, we do not let a single berry go to waste. How simple, how sensible. Even the birds, before they commence their autumnal travels, seek out everywhere the elder trees to purify their blood and strengthen their natures for long journeys. What a pity that man, on account of art and affection, no longer feels or takes notice of the natural instincts of the sound mind. If the berries are boiled down with sugar, or better still with honey, they will prove especially good in wintertime for people who have but little exercise and are condemned to a sedentary mode of life. A spoonful of the above preserves, stirred in a glass of water, makes the most splendid cooling and refreshing drink, operates on the secretions of the urine, and has good effect on the kidney. Many country people dry the berries, but whether the berries are dried and boiled as porridge or stewed and eaten, they form an excellent remedy against violent diarrhea because of the astringency. So that's interesting there. Then he gets into the dwarf. We'll skip that. Brother Aloysius, it was his protege. He said he also used both plants. We're just going to stick with common elder. Elderflowers are undoubtedly the most well-known diaphoretic in use. That means lowers a fever, and can be successfully employed at the onset of all kinds of chills. The inner rind of 1-year-old shoots mixed with half a quantity of licorice is an excellent remedy for dropsy. The leaves are drunk as tea and are a depurative. The infusion gets into his tea making instructions. I think we can all make tea. And then a well-known syrup can be made from the berries picked in autumn. The berries picked in autumn. An infusion of elder flowers boiled in milk with a slice of white bread soaked in it, applied between linen cloths on burning eyes, soon draws out all burning. Sore eyes are also much healed by this remedy. And he recommended the berries as a laxative. That was just the berries eaten plain. Elder leaves boiled in milk are beneficial for the scurf or eczema, essentially. Are depurative and laxative. And let's see. Now in Poland, Sophie Hodderuk's Nab tells us that they made pillows from the flowers, and they were heated and used as a treatment for earache, stomachache, pains of rheumatism. Syrups and jams and wine made from the berries all have health-giving properties. Young shoots were used as a salve for rheumatism. The new leaves and shoots dried and ground into a powder and added to chicken soup used for obstructions of the bowels, or a cream-based soup, she says. The Slavs appreciate the elderberry bush for its healing and magical properties. If the white blossoming flowers were cut on the night of June, at St. John's Eve, June 23, they were felt to have miraculous powers and healed all diseases. So a little folklore there. Igor Vilovich, what was his name? Igor Vilovich Nab? No, I can't be right. Oh, I can't remember. I'll get you the name next time. He writes in a Russian era herbal, Early Russians believed that the elder was home to a tree spirit, usually in the form of an old woman. In medieval times, elder was used to cure toothache, to interrupt epileptic fits, to remove poisons from metal vessels, and guarantee that the person who cultivated it would die in his or her own home. In official Russian herbal medicine, an extract of elder flowers is used to treat chronic inflammations of the respiratory tract, including bronchitis, pneumonia, asthma, and other lung problems. It's also used to treat colds by raising the body temperature and promoting perspiration. A warm extract of elderflowers is recommended as a gargle for people with chronic tonsillitis. In folk medicine, an infusion of elderflowers has traditionally been used to treat rheumatism, gout, and kidney problems, as well as sinusitis and hay fever symptoms. In folk dermatology, elderflower infusions were used as an antiseptic, as a wash for skin problems, including eczema, psoriasis, seborrhea, dermatitis, and hair loss. In these cases, an extract from the flowers is rubbed on in the affected area. A flower extract also helps reduce inflammation of muscles and joints. Combination of elderflower and chamomile used in equal proportions, boiled and used as a compress. Preparations used from the young leaves are effective remedy for diarrhea. I skipped to the next paragraph. Preparations made from young leaves are effective remedy for arthritis, rheumatic complaints, arteriosclerosis, and diabetes. Leaves are also used to make an external ointment. My word, I'm getting tongue-tied. And are good for treating eye and ear diseases, toothaches, and bone pains. Leaves applied directly to the skin are also used for burns, skin irritations, and open wounds. Let me sip of water here. I'm probably skip a little bit more. We've really covered a lot of uses. Just want to mention the Cherokee made a decoction of the roots of the bark for the summer complaints. It's diarrhea again. A tea of the scrape bark is good for the stomach. Elderberry tea also drunk for rheumatism. Resources of Southern Fields and Forests gets into all the uses we've mentioned. Use for dropsy or edema. Wash for wounds, sore joints, good, expectorant for the lungs. King's Medical Dispensary, 1898, under actions, medicinal uses, and dosages. Stimulant, increasing secretions in a warm infusion. Elderflowers are diaphoretic. It means helps break a fever, raises the body temperature, and breaks the fever. And generally stimulant in cold infusions. They're diuretic, alternative in cooling, may be used in all diseases requiring such actions. They go into list of uses we pretty much already covered. Externally, good for skin issues, eruptions, and irritations. Specific indication uses in skin affections where the tissues are full, flabby, and edematous, meaning you're retaining a lot of fluid. Let's see. We covered all that. Okay, modern use. Plants for a Future says medicinal use of elder. The plant has medicinal qualities. No further details, but these are given of the medicinal property of the closely related Acebulus, Sambucus. I'm not sure which one that is, but anyway, it says the leaves are antiphlogistic, cholagogue, diuretic, expectorant, and laxative. The fruit is sometimes used, but is less active than the leaves. The herb is commonly used in the treatment of liver and kidney complaints. When bruised and lay on boiled and scalds, they have a healing effect. It can be made into a poultice for treating swellings and contusions. That's good. Is there anything I have not covered? Rodale. It says the elder was widely used by American Indians who applied the bark as an antidotal poultice to painful swellings and inflammation. Elder berries were listed in the official pharmacopoeia during the 19th century, and the flowers for nearly a century-long period spanning the 19th and 20th centuries even. The flowers were listed as mildly stimulant, carminative, and diaphoretic. And speaking of which, the PDR, the Physician's Desk Reference for Herbal Medicine, says flowers and berries of Sambucus nigra and Sambucus canadensis are used to shorten the duration and severity of colds and flus. Yes, very good antiviral. to treat eczema and other skin disorders, and to reduce pain and inflammation. Essentially, it helps prevent the virus from replicating. So very, very useful. Indications and uses approved by Commission E for cough, bronchitis, fevers, and cold. The drug is used for colds and coughs. It is a sweat-producing remedy for treatment of feverish colds. In folk medicine, elderflowers are used internally as a sudorific tea, that means helps you sleep. And for colds and other feverish conditions, elder is also used as infusion, a gargle, a mouthwash for respiratory disorders such as coughs, head colds, laryngitis, flu, and shortness of breath. Elder is used occasionally by nursing mothers to increase lactation. Externally, head pillows are used for swellings and inflammations. Under precautions and adverse reactions, it says only fully ripe berries are used, as red berries can be mildly toxic. Leaves, shoots, and bark and raw red berries contain cyanogenic glycosides, so basically cyanide, and sambunigrin, there we go, that can cause dizziness, headaches, convulsions, gastrointestinal distress, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and tachycardia. So we do want to be careful with elder. Bark lectins may stimulate hyperplasia of the small intestine. Data suggests sambuca may be a source of potential harm to diabetic persons, and caution should be advised. So, ripe berries, make sure you got the right variety, and it's a great plant to find in the wild, cultivate, grow. Elder wine is superior to most country wines. It's just as good as grape wine. I love the jelly. I love a compote, a conserve, anything made from those berries. I have not used the leaves and bark a lot in herbal medicine. I really go for the berries and the flowers as a wild edible. So y'all have a good one. Say a prayer for me that I can get things straightened out with the DMV. And I'll talk to you next week.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.